I'm your cult boyfriend. Today we're talking about Pretty Little Liars, a new journey on the channel. On Your Cult Boyfriend, what we like to do most is analyze and study teen drama. And Pretty Little Liars is a show that's always been on my radar. Of course, it's been on my radar. It's a huge show, it's a behemoth, it's a massive teen drama, one of the most defining teen dramas in the history of the art form. I have never watched a single episode until this analysis video series started. The show's got me excited. It's going to be a pretty long show. The show ran from 2010 to 2017 on ABC Family and Freeform, the newly rebranded ABC Family. Talks about themes of friendship, loyalty, betrayal, love, murder. The name we're going to have to become most familiar with is the auteur showrunner behind Pretty Little Liars, Marlene King, who is very good, is very good. Pretty Little Liars follows four friends who are being stalked, haunted, taunted by a cyber stalker, or just a stalker in general, actually, named A, who is kind of giving them clues, making fun of them, testing them, uh, all because of their friend. There used to be five of them, and now there's four. Their friend Allison was like the leader of this kind of super petty and kind of a radically a dangerous sort of a group of teenage girls. Allison was murdered. And now the four that are left are trying to figure out exactly what happened to her, while simultaneously they're also trying to come of age, trying to mature, trying to heal past trauma, trying to work through current woes and dilemmas. That's essentially what the story of Pretty Little Liars is. And our four liars, I think are great. Well, okay, 75% of them are great. We have Aria, we have Emily, we have Hannah, and we have Spencer. Now, I like all of them except for one, and I think I'll talk about that one last. We'll talk about my favorite one first, which is Spencer. Spencer is a very cool character. I think that she's most engaging because of she's the best performed out of all of the characters. Florian Belisario is an intensely good actor. And as the show progresses, she's given more and more to do because I feel like the showrunner and the creatives involved behind the scenes saw that Troyan was kind of acting circles around the other three, which isn't really to, I'm not really trying to criticize the other three too much. It's just that Troyan Belisario is just too good. She's just too good to be limited to the kind of standard archetypes and architecture of storylines that the other three are kind of confined to. Spencer is really cool. So there's part Paris Geller here. There's part Blair Waldorf. She's an interesting amalgamation of a lot of archetypes that we've seen before, a lot of character types that we've seen before. She is like the preppy rich girl who is being framed. Ultimately, she's being framed for a murder, and she's also this preppy rich girl who has a, a perverse tendency to hook up with her sister's boyfriends, um, which lends to some interesting concepts about like she wants what she can't have, that sort of thing. But also her sister is insane. Uh, I also just feel like she's insane because she's played by Psycho Carrie from One Tree Hill. That's a thing about this show. There are so many different characters, so many different actors who played the like character actors from teen drama. So like side characters will pop up in here. If I had to list every single actor from every single teen drama or teen film that appeared in the first season of Pretty Little Liars, I would be here forever. Right now, we're just talking about Spencer. Her archetype is kind of like the rich girl in the destroyed room of personality. Because even when we first meet Spencer, she is like she's already kind of like falling apart, or she's already deconstructed to begin with. That's kind of the cool thing about Allison dying. You get the sense that when they were all together, they seem to like occupy their very specific social roles in ways that were more standard and more standard lines, right? And her death, I think, at least in the pilot, they're all separated and they're all kind of like deconstructed and falling apart in a large to a large degree. But this might come down to Troyan's portrayal of Spencer, but her deconstruction, like that we enter into her character with is so palpable, and like it's completely accessible to the audience more so than the others. Spencer is a character who seems kind of tortured 90% of the time, which makes for a very heartbreaking sort of character with an awful lot of pathos. Like even when she is clearly um kind of tempting the fates or doing something that the audience is supposed to disagree with, we still feel for her because of the not only the portrayal of the actress, but also of the writing. I, Marlene King is actually very good at writing. And I know this is another show that's based on a popular series of YA novels. And just like Gossip Girl, I'm not going to read them. I don't care. And also, when you transform something into a show, it's ultimately very transformative and probably bears little resemblance to the source material. And even if it is like an entirely faithful adaptation of the source material, I don't care. I'm focusing on this show, so I'm giving I, Marlene King kind of most of the credit when it comes to the frameworks that we're actually exploring these characters and scenarios within. And Spencer, to me, is the most grappling and gripping character available. Um, like I said, I feel like Spencer is this rich girl, this preppy girl who seems entirely put together. I love her wardrobe, and her wardrobe is just so kind of like immaculate, so deliberately arranged and designed that you get the sense that she is so perfectly put together, so kind of refined and so calm, cool, and collected. You get the idea of someone of wealth. And I think she has the most beautifully composed and designed arc of the first season because she's clearly a girl who's like crying out for help. And it's not help like to be saved from her good name being tarnished, or to be saved from her family's kind of cruel perception of her based on her past behavior, which she seems to be blamed for entirely. People like Ian and the first British boyfriend or whatever from the pilot of her sisters, they don't really seem to catch any sort of flack for for going out of their way to try to hook up with a minor who is your girlfriend or fiance's sister nonetheless. She's carrying not only the weight of the world on her shoulders, but the weight of all personality, the weight of the show on her shoulders. And I think this is a show that is at least cognizant of its own making. Because when they talk about Allison, they refer to her as a movie. And Spencer has a lot of these lines, and that's why I'm still focusing on Spencer here. And I'll make like a rather grand point about Spencer in just a few minutes. But when they talk about Allison, they're like, Allison was a movie. They're like, I feel like I'm in a movie. This is so surreal. And they're like, well, Allison was a movie. And then Spencer and Allison have this falling out in a flashback where she talks about like the concept of leadership. And I think it's a really kind of inspired exchange of words here, a harsh exchange of words, where Spencer is like, see, you think we won't exist without you, Allison. But what if you don't exist without us? Spencer is a character who is tortured by the authoritative idea of legacy. And it's Allison's legacy. It's also the legacy of her family, which is a very wealthy and well off and well to do family. Spencer doesn't seem to liberate herself in any kind of like considerable way until she starts to approach Toby, who was this weird kid. And we'll talk about Toby a bit more after we focus on the four main liars. But Toby is considered a freak. He was the first person who was framed for the murder of Allison, and Spencer is the second one who was framed for the murder of Allison, and they have a romantic connection together. And it's one of the romantic connections on the show that I actually buy in its totality. I really like them together. There's a great amount of chemistry. And I feel that she feels safe with Toby. And it's a liberating a part of herself, the girlhood in captivity part of herself. She's a girlhood in captivity, and what is she like a captive within? What's her prison cell? It's the destroyed room of personality because she's kind of unallowed to come of age in the ways that her friends are. A mansion is huge, but a mansion can also for certain kind of tortured young girls who are confused about their personality and like their aggressive tendencies. A huge mansion can also just be a huge prison cell. And and I think we can kind of extend that to like her her wardrobe, which I'm such a fan of. It does speak wealth. It does speak in volumes of wealth. She seems very well-to-do and preppy and put together, and which is an extension of the prison cell, which is the mansion of her house. And even when she's out in public, she's still shackled. 'Cause I think that like her ties, her blazers, her amazing wardrobe is kind of a prison uniform. Ironically, counterintuitively, it is a prison uniform. And even Toby makes this comment of like she's lying down on the bed studying, and he says, "Are you like you can't be comfortable wearing that tie and that jacket right now?" And she becomes kind of self-conscious for a moment, and says, "No, I am comfortable," because we're only in season one, so we're not going to get like a full character arc, but she does become a bit more liberated, and I thought that the characterization, Torian Bellisario is an incredible actress, and I think our I Marlene King, her writing and her basic design of the overall composition of the show was at its most powerful when we were focusing on Spencer Hastings. I thought she was an outrageously good character. The second liar I'd like to talk about is Emily Fields. Emily has a kind of paint by numbers coming out story. What's cool about that is that Bianca Lawson was her primary love interest for the first half of the season. And Bianca Lawson, I think, played a 16-year-old for 20 years. We've talked about her in past videos of different series on the channel. We've talked about her on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We've talked about her on Dawson's Creek. I don't know if we talked about her on The Vampire Diaries, but I know she was in it. I haven't finished The Vampire Diaries, but I know she was on that show. And now here she is in Pretty Little Liars. She's an unsung teen drama queen. Is your teen drama even real if Bianca Lawson isn't in it? Like, she's so sexy, bro, and she's awesome in this show. Um, I was a bigger fan of her than I was of Emily, to be honest. But nonetheless, Emily is a good character, or that there's at least a great amount of potential for her character to be great. She's nowhere near Spencer levels of captivating, but Shay Mitchell does do an extremely good job with the material that she's given. I think her second love interest is Mose from Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide, which was kind of off-putting for most of it, to be honest. 'Cause I'm like, oh my God, it's fucking Mose. What is she doing here, being so weird and awkward and kind of cruel most of the time on screen in Pretty Little Liars? She was kind of a bully. But Emily and her end up forming a sort of relationship. Um, in 2010, I feel like coming out stories must have been kind of passe. I don't think they're unnecessary to tell and retell and reshape and reform. I just feel like it's not as taboo as it was. We've talked about Jack coming out on Dawson's Creek, and I feel like that was a new and fresh concept, something that was kind of controversial. But in 2010, is a coming out story still that um unexpected, or still that controversial? I can't believe that it is. I refuse to believe that it is, to be honest. So her stories felt kind of dated. But there's a great amount of potential for her character, and I'm excited to see where we go. I didn't hate my time with Emily at all. I did feel like, so far as a coming out tale goes, I think it's a I think it is necessary, to always retell coming out stories in case there's a new generation of kids who are uncomfortable with the idea of being real about their sexuality and being open and honest with their family and friends about it. I think it's always good to retell those stories. And I think all things considered, the coming out story, her that's her arc. That's basically all she does this entire season. Um, like all things considered, it is done delicately and with care and with a little bit more complexity than I think it's given credit for, but at the same time, I feel that it is passe and it is kind of easy. There might be a little bit of laziness when it came to Emily crafting her character here, whereas with Spencer and with the next character I'm going to talk about, Hannah, though the writing and the composition was a lot more attentive and a lot more complicated and sophisticated. So let's talk about Hannah now. Ashley Benson, incredible, incredible looking too. Actually, okay, all they're called Pretty Little Liars. They're all unreasonably attractive, so I won't single any of them out. Ashley Benson is very good in this role as well. Hannah Hannah went through so many different changes. In fact, just like kind of Spencer, when we come in and we realize we're looking at a girl, Spencer is this living, walking poetry, the symbol of girlhood in captivity of the destroyed room of personality. That's a mouthful, but that's what Spencer is. I love her to death. She's very complicated. Hannah, when we first come in, she's already like a reformed archetype because she used to be hefty Hannah, as Allison would make fun of her for being kind of overweight. And also Allison and Emily had a kind of romantic pairing in the past as well. Spencer and Allison kind of were not antagonistic towards each other, but I think that Allison could recognize Spencer's natural aptitude for leadership and how Spencer was obviously smarter than Hannah. I think that Allison was intimidated by Hannah. Um, Allison had interesting dynamics and unique dynamics with each of our main liars here, and with Hannah, it was kind of making fun of her for being overweight or uh, well, yeah, it was making fun of her for being overweight, because I was like, "But didn't she teach her how to, lose weight?" "Oh, yeah, by becoming bulimic. She taught her how to throw up." That's entirely unhelpful and dangerous, Allison. Oh, we'll get to Allison too, don't you worry. But Hannah goes through a lot of interesting things, a lot of interesting dynamics with different sorts of boys like Sean, Lucas, and the fuck is the bad boy's name? Caleb, who Caleb is the most interesting person she came in contact with romantically. Lucas is nice guy cringe, and Sean is who the fuck even is Sean? His personality changes every single episode. I don't care. His personality changes all the time. But his friend Noel, I hope we see more of. He was cool. He was a fun little kind of unknown variable, like a wrecking ball of sorts. He was kind of cool. I like Noel. I hope we get more Noel. I don't care about Sean. I don't care about Lucas. But Caleb was fun. Caleb had an interesting amount of chemistry with Hannah, and Hannah has kind of reformed herself into the queen bee, like the most attractive, um, the most superficial and desirable girl at school, that kind of thing. And over time, she becomes a lot more sincere within that archetype. Like we see the authenticity of the hefty Hannah persona kind of enter into this new kind of publicly gorgeous one. And I think she becomes like a pretty damn good person by the end of the season. And oh man, you want to talk about a character that gets punished. I mean, she gets run over by a car. She gets her heart broken several times. I think she's the most punished out of all of the liars. And I don't exactly know why. Perhaps I, Marlene King, thinks that, and she'd be right, that Ashley Benson is at her most cinematic when she is in peril. And as an actress and as a character, like it's very interesting to see Hannah, this incredibly like beautiful young girl, just kind of crying so much and being vulnerable so often. Um, it hits a more primal part of what is cinematically kind of thrilling to see, but it's it's wonderfully done. I would say Spencer and Hannah are the two characters who are done wonderfully. Emily, I believe there's laziness around it, but it her character is compensated for in other ways. I still wouldn't call her a misfire. Spencer is the brilliant character here, who I love to watch. Arya, Arya is the character that I could do without. I don't like Arya. I don't like her story. I don't like Mr. Fitz. I don't like the weird kind of moral nihilism that we enter into with Arya while they're trying to insist on placing so much meaning and importance on this in entirely inappropriate relationship that she's in with her teacher for the entire season. I don't like Arya. I don't like her psychology. I don't like her philosophy. I don't like the way that she interacts with the people around her. And I don't think this is Lucy Hale's fault. But I'm also kind of unimpressed with Lucy Hale as an actor in this. I'm kind of unimpressed with her performance. Everything feels very safe. I feel like the character itself could have been more interesting if we had an actor who was doing something like remotely different with the archetype. But I've seen this archetype 1,000 times before, and I've seen it done better most of the time. Arya is just very boring, and I think when the show started, she was supposed to be our central character, and then over time, Spencer certainly occupied that role. Kind of took the central position of the show away from her. Uh, and Arya is just entirely boring. Her parents are boring. Her brother is boring. Everything about Arya is boring. And no actor involved with the Arya storylines are even attempting to make it engaging. Like Mr. Fitz is a very boring actor and unlikable character. Lucy Hale is just seemingly uninvolved with most of the scenes that she's in. Her parents get way too much screen time. I don't care about them at all. So Arya, I'm sorry, Arya is she flopped. She flopped on my viewing. There was really nothing to engage with here. There's something to engage with when you put them all together. When all four liars are on screen together, there is a great amount of iconography being forged. You sense a great deal of power when you see the four of them share a frame, reading a text in unison. It's like sleep well, bitches. But Spencer is the one who gets to have the final showdown with the big bad of this season, who is Ryan Merriman, fucking smart house guy, coming back from my youth to try to give me some nightmares here. It couldn't have been more obvious that Ian was going to be the big bad. I don't think Ian actually killed Allison. We don't even know if Ian's truly dead because his body is missing. But for all intents and purposes, he is the big bad because he tries to murder Spencer. He tries to murder Spencer at the very end. And he also preyed on Spencer when she was young. But really, hold up a picture of of Ian and hold up a picture of Mr. Fitz and tell me to spot the difference. And I'll tell you it's the same goddamn picture. Those are both inappropriate relationships. Yet Mr. Fitz is treated like this romantic martyr within the show's context, whereas Ian is just creepy beyond belief. Like fuck off. They're you can't vilify one character for doing the exact same thing as another, but Ian is a bad character. So is Mr. Fitz, that's my point. Ian is a very bad character, the very bad man. He's such an obvious choice that if you're surprised at all by him being the big central villain, the big bad of the season, if you're surprised at all, you're surprised because of how obvious it was. Because this is a show that is a murder mystery, and it loves its red herrings. It loves its red herrings almost as much as Rob Thomas did, which gets me into an interesting side note, or actually a very interesting point of insight, point of interest. This show is a lot like Veronica Mars. I believe it's probably a good blend of Veronica Mars and Desperate Housewives, but I don't know much about Desperate Housewives, but I at least know the vibe, and I do get the vibe from Pretty Little Liars. I know a lot about Veronica Mars. I have her name tattooed on my body twice, and we've covered her on the channel a lot. I I love the show. I think it's perfect. And they even reference it's one of the few shows they actually do reference in Pretty Little Liars, which makes me think that I Am Arlene King and the network, the showrunner, the writers, they kind of knew that they were aping a style. This is a show that is very inspired by Veronica Mars. Veronica would have solved this mystery in under 45 minutes, though, and now the mystery is still ongoing. We don't know who A is. I'm not convinced Ian actually killed Allison because there was some line about like I pushed her down and you should see the mark on her head, and then Spencer said she died of suffocation or something. I don't. Oh my God, I remember it was so frustrating because they may have said how Allison died, like in episode 3 or 4 or something, but I forgot, and they never went back to it, so I never really knew the cause of death for Allison. So when they found that trophy, I'm like, oh, I guess it was like bludgeoned to death. I guess it was blunt force trauma. But then something about suffocation by Spencer at the very end to kind of throw you off the scent of Ian, but it's compositionally kind of interesting because Ian is still, regardless of whether or not he really killed Allison, is Like I think Ian thinks he killed Allison, but I don't think he did. I think it's one of those kind of twists. But Ian is still trying to murder Spencer regardless. So like there's a lot of sensory overload there, which is something that Rob Thomas did with his mysteries often. I think that Rob Thomas and Veronica Mars, Rob Thomas is the showrunner of Veronica Mars. That's why I'm saying his name. I'm not talking about the fucking guy from Matchbox 20. I'm talking about Rob Thomas, the showrunner of Veronica Mars. Um, this show owes a lot to Veronica Mars, and Veronica Mars being one of my favorite shows on the planet. They couldn't have picked a better thing to be influenced by, to be inspired by. I wouldn't call it a ripoff at all, but I love that I can see Veronica here. I love that I can see the tapestry of Veronica Mars here, because this is a show that is obsessed with its red herrings. It's obsessed with going down dead end avenues that the show knows are dead ends, and that should frustrate you, but you feel better for it because you get to know these red herrings better and they come back in a different kind and they occupy a different sort of intent in later episodes. Really, there's a lot of Veronica Mars and Pretty Little Liars. I am here for it. Can I talk about Toby and Jenna? Can I please now talk about Toby and Jenna? Oh my gosh. What fucking show did they fucking walk out of? All right. Toby is normalized by the end of the season, but when you first see Toby leading blind Jenna down a hallway, it's like these two just walked out of a different show altogether. They don't belong here. What are these fucking psychopaths doing on My Pretty Little Liars show? Which kind of brings me back to the point about Allison being a movie. Allison had all of these ulterior motives and was fucking with so many different people that I think there were 1,000 different kind of like genres all surrounding her. A bunch of different shows, a bunch of different movies, a bunch of different everything, plot lines and narratives and meta narratives all surrounding this girl, Allison. And she was involved in so many different kinds of genres and stories and styles. And we're able to see a lot of the different people that she fucked with. And we're seeing like shades of the romantic comedy. We're seeing shades of um coming of age, obviously. And with Jenna and Toby, we're getting something a lot darker and more intense. We're getting something subversive. Whenever you see Jenna, Jenna is one of my favorite characters on the show because she is pure cinema. She is incredible. I think the actress does incredible, and I think that she does her most when she speaks the least. Like she just has such a dominating presence. Those dark black sunglasses, the black wardrobe, like and the fact that she is blind with her cane and you hear the tap tap tapping or you just hear her voice pop out of nowhere like the jerk of her head. She seems more perceptive than anybody else and yet she can't see a goddamn thing. I didn't trust this chick so much that I was like, this bitch ain't even blind. This bitch ain't even blind. There's no way. I don't trust a single thing that Jenna does. I love that the show made me so paranoid over this blind girl. And I love Jenna so much. She is pure cinema. She's pure style. Like whenever she shows up in a scene, whenever she's confronted, whenever she confronts the liars, it's a different show. It's a different show where the logic kind of changes because we're in like genre tropes now. We're in like B movie paradise whenever she shows up, like reminding me of Vampira in a way. Like she just shows up and she's just all presence. And that presence is dark and morbid dread. And I love Jenna so much. I hope to see more of her. I hope we're not done with her. I like her a lot. She's a less is more character. Absolutely a less is more character. Toby is normalized. Toby starts off as a seemingly psychotic person as well because she's like the right hand of Jenna, who they have like not an incestual relation because they are step siblings, but Jenna did, I guess, force Toby to maintain a sexual relationship with him with her, I'm sorry, or else she would claim that Toby forced himself on her. Jenna's very, very interesting, very, very interesting character, devious and devilish. Love her to death. Toby is normalized over the course of the show as Spencer starts to liberate herself more from the captivity of the girlhood of perfectionism. As she starts to free herself more, Toby becomes more normalized, and you start to see a real sensitive kind of kid under all of that psychotic, stylish garb of the stylish compositions that you first saw him within. But Jenna, I don't think you can normalize Jenna, and definitely don't try to normalize Jenna. I want Jenna to always be this weird specter, this weird haunting ghoulish figure in the corner. I love her so much. She's perfect. She does not belong in this show, and that's what makes her so incredible to watch. Because, like I said, whenever she shows up, the the rules of the genre change. It's a very genre bending show, which Pretty Little Liars, I haven't seen this brought up too much. It bends genres effortlessly because when Jenna is there, it's not a teen drama anymore. It's like it's like a De Palma-esque erotic thriller from the 80s, okay? Like it's no like she has Jalo fucking parts. Like she looks like a villain in a Dario Argento movie. It's incredible. The show bends genres constantly. It's a very transformative show, and I'm pretty impressed by it. Would I call this season great? No. No. Would I call it very good? No, because we spend half of our time is spent with Arya and with Emily, who I feel are the products of laziness and just stupidity for Arya. Like half of the show to me is not worth interacting with, at least not on an analytical level. But the time we spend with Spencer and Hannah and Jenna, these are very fruitful storylines and arcs. So I would call it good. I would not call it very good, and I would not call it great. I would call it good, and I would call it occasionally incredibly, deeply fascinating. Allison is deeply fascinating. Allison is very much so like Amanda Seyfried's Lily Kane from the first season of Veronica Mars. But where Lily Kane, you can figure out the symbolism of Lily Kane pretty well. She's like the concept of the American teen dream, like the idealized form of teen dreams that was murdered by uh, patriarchal authority figures. It's more difficult to tell exactly what Allison is symbolizing, um, which makes the show a little bit more complex in a couple different ways. Because in flashbacks, she's perceived mostly as the mentor, mostly as this kind of negative force in these girls' lives, and yet these girls are trying desperately to kind of find her killer. And the more steps they take in the direction and pursuit of the killer, they are kind of tested and punished by outside forces for doing that. And I really hope that they ask themselves why they care so much, because I don't know why they do. I really don't. Like the symbolism isn't there yet for Allison. Like, what did she represent to these four girls? Does she represent like that darker part, like the shadow archetypes of these four girls? That is entirely possible. That's also almost completely boring. I want it to be something a bit more than that. I get that she represents maybe like the id or the darker parts, like the twisted mirror universe versions of our four liars, but there's got to be something more there. And even if that is the case, why would the liars um, seemingly try like so desperately to keep her memory intact? I hope that they question the point of it all, because based on a lot of the flashbacks of Allison that we are shown on the television show, she's not worth mourning. And that in itself can be really powerful. If just one of the liars says, "I don't give a fuck about Allison anymore," that would be really cool for me to see. To see that kind of, because it goes back to one of the most interesting exchanges with Spencer and them, like, "Allison, you think we won't exist without you, but you won't exist without us. Let's test that theory. Let's see it. I want to see that work." Because currently Allison's right, because the momentum of all of the characters on Pretty Little Liars is dictated by a dead girl, is dictated by Allison. So far, this show obviously would not exist without Allison's death, without Allison herself as this constant presence, this ghostly one, this apparition or a flashback, this mystery that needs desperately to be solved. Um, our four characters would not exist without Allison. So far, Allison's more important than the four liars, and I kind of want our four liars to regain a sense of narrative autonomy. I want one of them to go, "Fuck this Allison thing. I don't care." Do I care? Yeah, yeah, I want to know what actually happened to Allison, but I want one of our characters to just kind of, because they're tethered intimately to her. I want one of them to just pull the umbilical and go, you know what? No, no more, no more. Allison made me bulimic. Allison made me paranoid. Allison, romantically like abused me. Like fuck that. Fuck you, Allison. I want them to kind of get mad at Allison, like at her spirit, at her memory, because then we can get into some really interesting territory of being mad at the ghost of the girl you were as you're coming of age. As coming of age is a deconstruction of your youth. It's about maturity and becoming mad at the person you used to be, like reviling her. Um, I think that would be really interesting to see. So I hope that that's where we go to. I also hope that this mystery doesn't last all 7 seasons. I think it's 7 seasons, bro. I hope it doesn't last all seven because there's no way I'm gonna be this caring 6 seasons from now. Um, but I did say it's just a good show, but there is so much potential here for Pretty Little Liars to be a great show. And it holding such a place of high regard and esteem in the teen drama pantheon of television, uh, I think more it's the likeliest thing is that there will be at least one masterwork season. I don't know when that's going to be. It wasn't season one, but that's fine. That's fine. Here's hoping it's season two because I think this show has a lot of sophistications if it would just kind of flesh them out a little bit more. If you could just flesh them out more, this show would be perfect. Just a little bit more. Thank you for watching. I hope you stick with me on this new journey.